Morristown, New Jersey, 1833. On a windy May evening, a farmer named Samuel Sayre was awakened by his servant, a Frenchman named Antoine Leblanc. In broken English, Antoine told Samuel about a problem in the barn that required his immediate attention. One of the farmer's horses was in great distress, possibly dying. Samuel quickly dressed, lit a lantern, and followed his servant outside to attend his sickly horse. But as they entered the darkness of the barn, Samuel was confused by the quiet. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and his horses appeared relaxed. His confusion lasted only a moment, and then Samuel Sayre was never confused by anything again. He was murdered in his barn that night, along with his wife and their young servant girl, the victims of a psychopath that had lived among them for almost a month. And while all three were killed by a monster, the fate of their killer would be fittingly monstrous. A triple murder, a brutal execution, taboo science experiments, and some peculiar fashion accessories tell a story of the darkness that can emerge from the human soul. This is the story of Antoine Leblanc, the killer made into a wallet. Antoine Leblanc was disowned by his wealthy family in France for reasons unknown. Intent on making his own fortune in the New World, he traveled to America, arriving in New York in 1833. He found tentative employment on Samuel Sayre's farm in Morristown, New Jersey, where he worked as a hired hand, doing odd jobs like feeding pigs and cleaning horse manure. Antoine despised the work and soon learned to despise his employers for reasons known only to him. Perhaps, coming from a family of some means, he resented the manual labor his circumstance required, or perhaps simply taking orders from the Sayres and their young servant girl did not sit well. To make matters worse, his position at the farm was unpaid. Antoine and Samuel's arrangement was work in exchange for food and shelter in the form of a basement room. And it was in this small, dark space beneath the farmer's house that Antoine began to conjure thoughts of violence. On the night of May 11th, Antoine was sipping brandy in a tavern, waiting for his employers to retire for the night. Sometime in the late evening, he returned to the Sayres' house and awakened Samuel to inform him about a problem with one of his horses. After luring the unsuspecting farmer into the barn, Antoine struck him on the back of his head with a shovel. He knocked Samuel to the ground and beat him until his skull had caved in. He then dragged Samuel's body to the corner of the barn and covered it in horse manure before returning to the house to wake Mrs. Sayre. He told the farmer's wife a similar story, that a horse was sick and that her husband required her immediate assistance. Mrs. Sayre quickly dressed, lit a lamp, and followed Antoine out to the barn. She died in much the same way as her husband, with the crack of a shovel to the back of her head, followed by a hard stomp from Antoine's boot. Mrs. Sayre's body was dragged next to her husband's, and she too was covered in horse manure. Then Antoine returned to the house one last time. He did not bother to wake the servant girl with a story about a commotion in the barn. Antoine simply bashed her head in with a club as she slept. He then ransacked the house for valuables, packing as many as he could on a stolen horse before riding off into the night. But his greed was his undoing. Antoine had not secured one of his bags properly, and one by one, mile by mile, artifacts belonging to the Sayres fell to the ground, marking the killer's trail with stolen goods, like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale forest. When one of the Sayres' neighbors stumbled across an item he recognized, he suspected something was wrong. He rode to the Sayres' farm to check, and there he found the bodies of the farmer, his wife, and their servant girl. The neighbor immediately notified the authorities, who followed the trail of stolen goods to a tavern in the Hackensack Meadowlands. There they found Antoine Leblanc, and in his possession, the valuables of the dead Sayres. The murderer was arrested and taken back to Morristown to face trial. Antoine Leblanc was provided with a public attorney, which helped him very little, as the jury took only 20 minutes to find him guilty. A judge named Gabriel Ford sentenced him to death, addressing the condemned man in English, in words Antoine did not understand. Judge Ford said to him, "You are to be hung by the neck until you are dead, and it is further considered by the court that after the execution is done, your body will be delivered to a surgeon for dissection. May God have mercy on your soul." News of the crime and upcoming execution spread across New Jersey, and on the day of LeBlanc's death, there were 1,200 onlookers in attendance. According to a local newspaper, no such crowd of witnesses was ever in the town before or since. People came by the thousands. Horses and wagons at times blocked the roads for a mile or more in every direction. Many people brought their lunches, but all supplies gave out early, and scores went hungry. A local judge named Stephen Vale volunteered a new device for LeBlanc's execution, a death machine of his own design, made in his very own ironworks factory. The device was an iron gallows that used a pulley and counterweight system, as opposed to a traditional gallows, which dropped the condemned man through an opening in the bottom of a platform. His machine was designed to hoist the hangman high into the air for all to see. According to Judge Vale's own account, the sheriff cut the rope, the weight dropped, and he went up 8 feet into the air. He struggled for 2 minutes by my stopwatch. Antoine Leblanc, shown here in his death mask, was left hanging for half an hour, so everyone could have their chance to see the dead killer. His body was eventually cut down, and 2 physicians, named Dr. Henry and Dr. Canfield, transported the body to the Morristown courthouse for experimentation. To test a prevailing theory that a corpse could be reanimated with electricity, the 2 doctors made incisions on both arms and legs. They connected electrical wires and a primitive battery to the exposed nerves, causing the dead man's arms and legs to twitch, his eyes to roll crazily in their sockets, and a faint grin to spread across his lips. But no other signs of life emerged from the dead man, and the experiment was deemed a failure. Antoine's body was dissected for anatomical research, but the skin was removed for an entirely different reason. The dead man's hide was taken to the Atno Tannery in Morristown, where it was treated and made, according to a local newspaper, into charming little keepsakes. Wallets, a purse, a lampshade, and even a book cover were supposedly crafted from the killer's skin. The same article claims Judge Cutler of Morristown is said to have a piece of skin, and Judge Carter of Newton has a pocketbook made from it, bearing the endorsement of the sheriff that it's the real, authentic goods. A pocketbook made from Antoine Leblanc's skin was found at an estate sale more than 150 years later, and was donated to a museum where it remains to this day. The only remaining piece of Antoine Leblanc, the killer, made into a wallet.